Hey friends, just a little caveat before today's episode. If you normally listen to the Living Marriages podcast with your little ones around, you might want to put some headphones in or choose a different time, as today's episode contains some more mature subject matter.
And I think that one of the things that can be tricky is that a lot of times there are messages that we've internalized, and not everybody internalized them. But what's been really helpful, I think, in what we've been doing recently is to look and say, oh, okay, are we seeing sex as a male entitlement and a female obligation? Okay, if we are, what is that doing? What does it mean to unpick that? What does it mean to find health and healing?
Do you find yourself wondering if this is all marriage has to offer? Are you so busy and exhausted at the end of the day that your marriage is the last thing you have energy to think about?
If you're wondering if God has more for your marriage, you've come to the right place. Welcome to the Living Marriages podcast. My name is Aaron, pastor and marriage coach.
And I'm April, spiritual director and marriage coach. Join us as we explore simple habits for building intimacy with your spouse while learning what it means to center your marriage on Christ. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Living Marriages podcast. We are so excited today to have a guest joining us here in our dining room. We are joined today by Joanna Sawatsky, and you may have heard her name before, you may not have, but you're going to hear more about her and what she's been up to over these last 5 or 6 years now. And we actually randomly met at our children's kindergarten class.
Yep.
Live in the same neighborhood. We've been getting to know each other, our families, our kids are playing together right now.
Oh, they're having an amazing play date.
Yeah. And so we are so excited to hear from you this morning, Joanna. So why don't you start by telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I'm Joanna Sawatsky. I am a trained epidemiologist, so just a public health nerd, which really means I take lots of different disciplines, be it some psychology, we've done marketing stuff, lots of math, and we apply it to health. And in my case, that's really looking at marriages, how marital outcomes work, sexual satisfaction, sexual pain, and really applying that to Christian marriage. And what are we as the church doing well? What are we not doing as well? And how can we do better in the future?
Wow, that's wonderful. Now, Joanna, you work with a team that many of our listeners will be familiar with. That's the wonderful folks over at bearmarriage.com, author Sheila Ray Gregoire, Dr. Keith Gregoire, and their daughter, Rebecca Lindenbach. Now, your relationship with this family was personal before it was professional. Can you tell us some more?
They rescued me at the hospital after I had a postpartum hemorrhage. So Josiah was going to take the bar, and he was leaving for Toronto to go take the bar exam. And I was supposed to go along with the baby. We were going to go support daddy while he took the bar. And I called my doctor and was like, I have these symptoms. And they said, you get to go to the ER right now. And I called Keith and I was like, Keith, do I have to go to the ER? He was like, girl, I am a pediatrician. You have been told by your family doctor to go to the emergency room. Please go there now. So I did. And needed someone to come and rescue me. And so Sheila came, got me all sorted, took care of the baby. The baby slept in a dresser drawer at Keith and Sheila's house that night. It was a whole thing. And kind of over the next couple of weeks, started to think about maybe I should take on a new job with a newborn. Like, sure, that seems like a thing people do. And what sort of started is like, yeah, this would be a fun way for me to have some friend time and some grown-up time. I had just moved across the country again and was feeling lonely. And so it was a lovely way to have community. And that took a turn then when the next year, so that was 2018, then the beginning of 2019, Sheila read the book Love and Respect for the first time. And her line is that it was like an atomic bomb went off in her living room. Because suddenly everything that she thought she knew was proved to be wrong. Because she thought that everybody who was in this marriage ministry field was kind of coming at it from the same perspective, which was ultimately that what we want is that we're wanting healthy marriages. And obviously the people who write the other books that we critique would say that they want healthy marriages. The problem is that they also want there to be hierarchy, or they want there to be these other things that come along that are getting in the way of that one goal. We're not striving for just the one thing. We're letting distractions get in the way. One thing led to another. It was, okay, this book is, so Sheila wrote a review of Love and Respect. And I remember agonizing with her over whether or not to post it. And she chose to do it and to say, and this was really not a thing that you were supposed to do. The unwritten rule was don't criticize other people in this area. But we just got a deluge of comments. My joke is always, my research background is much more math and science than the more qualitative side of the social sciences. And my joke is that I have to get mad enough to do qualitative research. And we got comment after comment after comment on these posts that Sheila wrote about Love and Respect, saying, this is what was used by my abusive spouse. This was the tool that was utilized to hurt me. So I started reading and was horrified and thought, okay, well, this is a focus on the family book. I grew up listening to all of the Adventures in Odyssey ever. Like, surely Focus doesn't know. If I tell them using my very best, if I do my very best work to tell them that this is hurting people, they'll listen. And so I did my very best work. I put together a whole report for them. I summarized all the comments. I read through the book. I put together this point, this point, this point, this point. I made it a really nice logical flow, documented everything. We sent it to Focus, and there was crickets. And it wasn't just that we were sending it to Focus as people on the internet who had an opinion. Sheila had been a guest on Focus on multiple occasions. They knew her well. And we backed up. It wasn't her saying, hey, I think this is the problem. It was, again, we came to them with research, with well thought out ideas, and they didn't want to hear it. And so that was really an eye-opening experience as well. And then that led directly to us saying, okay, well, Focus doesn't want to listen. Then we need to tell people ourselves, because this is hurting people and we can't let that happen. So how do we tell people? Okay, well, I guess we're going to write a book. And so we started working on The Great Sex Rescue. But I know that I was a little long-winded telling the story, but I feel like it's important. I don't know, in my own life, I feel like the serendipity of God's hand is so fascinating to see when you go, oh, okay, it was all leading me here. And all of the little things that didn't make sense or that were really hard, it led me to this place. And that can be a trite, easy answer, and doesn't always, there's so much room for suffering and for other really hard things. I don't want to just put a really nice bow on it, but I do feel like that the way that everything happened was providential. I don't have another word for it. And I'm very grateful to have been able to be of use.
I remember you saying at one point that you and Josiah kind of joke around that it really wasn't for him that you guys moved out to Ontario, that God had plans for you out there, and that was his means of bringing you out
very
there.
Much so. Yeah.
You guys started writing The Great Sex Rescue in 2019. And so that's still relatively recent in the world of Christian marriage books and advice. And so I know we've heard from a few people that recommended that we look into Sheila's work and interview her on the podcast. And we look forward to talking to her in the future as well. But for people out there that are thinking, wait, what? This is Love and Respect. That's the book that was recommended to me. Or even some of the other books that you guys took a look at and realized were actually harmful. What kind of hope would you give people as they're maybe embarking on a new journey where they realize, oh, wow, things need to change? And what does that look like for them?
So I think it can really vary, right? So we can read a book that has stuff that can be harmful, or even is often harmful, and not be harmed by that book. This is not a book that says you should never use food safety in your house ever. Go ahead and eat all of the raw poultry that you would like. Right? They're making it a little bit more, it's more subtle. And a lot of times people have happy marriages. take the good, they leave the bad, and it's fine. And I want to always make space. Like there's room for having had that experience. However, I think it's helpful to kind of go and get curious about what's working and what isn't, and where have we internalized some of these ideas. One of the things that we've done a lot in the books, but also in the scholarly research that we're working on. So my job right now is much more drafting research articles to go out for the scientific public. And in doing that, I've stumbled upon, and by stumbled upon, I mean a collaborator told me that I should really look into this area of research called memorable messages. It's the idea that sometimes we have things that we've internalized as rules that we know that tell us how to act in a new situation. The fancy term is anticipatory socialization. So we know that if you see a red light, you should stop. But we also know sometimes it's things like we used to hear children should be seen and not heard. Now, my kids have not internalized that, which is good, right? That's not a helpful take. Now, we do talk about acting in a way that's appropriate and what are the expectations and all that kind of thing. But it's not be silent, let the grown-ups talk. And I think that one of the things that can be tricky is that a lot of times there are messages that we've internalized, and not everybody internalized them. But what's been really helpful, I think, in what we've been doing recently is to look and say, oh, okay, are we seeing sex as a male entitlement and a female obligation? Okay, if we are, what is that doing? What does it mean to unpick that? What does it mean to find health and healing? Going through kind of thinking, okay, do I believe that if like the idea of soul ties, do I believe that? What was it look like to get curious about whether or not soul ties exist? What would it look like to think about, is sex different than the way I've been taught that it is? And I think that kind of curiosity is really good, as well as holding space for the experiences of lots of other people. So again, recognizing that some people can read a book that I've analyzed and that I feel very strongly can and does harm people, but that not everyone is harmed by it. But also, if you're in that group where you go, I read this book and it didn't hurt me, it's like, yeah, but let's remember, we know, and it's been known since the 70s, that conservative, so like devout conservative religious women have extremely high rates of sexual pain. And so our job really, the impetus to the research, a lot of it is going, okay, somebody's got to figure this out. And there are lots of other researchers working on the same problem. But we come at it from a slightly different perspective, and we're really looking at how does the idea of female obligation play out in creating these sexual dysfunctions that are severe and cause a lot of hurt, and it's a very difficult condition to have. And so let's make sure that all of us are having compassion for other people's experiences and thinking in a way that we really are the body, and thinking about what would it be like to be somebody else.
You use the word curiosity, and that is one of our heartbeats as well, is being curious about what is God up to? What have I learned in the past? What's culture? What is gospel? What is not gospel? How would you invite people to start becoming curious?
I think that we all carry burdens. I know we look at, because they look very different for different people, but Jesus tells us that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. He also tells us that he's the way, the truth, and the life. And so as we go into truth, as we pursue truth, we're walking the way of Jesus, and we know that we'll find him at the end of the road, and he'll be with us the whole way. But if Jesus is the truth, then pursuing truth is ultimately pursuing Christ, and we're safe doing it. And I remind myself of that whenever I feel scared. You read the various books and all of the stories in them, or you will hear comments, and I think, oh, like, you're carrying such a burden, my friend. Like, it would be lovely for you to lay it down. And so seeing that as a call, not to, I have to change everything I've ever done and I've been such a, it's like, no, this is about finding the abundant life that Christ promises us. This is about putting down a burden. This is about allowing yourself to be truly yourself, right? To not feel like you have to fit yourself into a role, right? To feel like you can be you. That's great. To feel like, oh, okay, this is, if men are not monsters, right? So the idea that men have to have sex every certain number of hours or else things are going to explode. Like, we're not quite sure what, but like something bad's going to happen. Then what happens, right? You can't actually communicate. It's like, well, what if we took that away? What if we said, well, what if you got curious well, who actually said that? On what authority? Well, I've looked it up. It's they don't have a site. Like, it's James Dobson made it up, unfortunately. And so, okay, Dr. Dobson made it up. Do we need to, is that true? Okay, what if it's not true, then what can we do differently? How could we talk about our desires in a way that's not coercive, that's honoring the dignity of the other person and honoring our own human dignity? Wouldn't that be better? I guess that's my big pitch, is that it actually is better on the other side. Mm-hmm. And that it's okay, and that it's scary. It's scary anytime we're talking about belief change, behavior change, any of those things. I mean, goodness, the number of different things. I took a health promotion class in my grad school days, and you learned all of these different paradigms for how do you get people to change their behavior. People don't change their behavior. People don't change their beliefs. It's very hard for people to do that. And so thinking about it is understandably really scary and really hard. And it involves asking hard questions and doing difficult introspective work. And sometimes it involves humbling yourself, and nobody wants to do that. But again, Jesus is the truth, so he's going to be there. And that kind of constant, the presence of God as a gift that we know we will have has been such a constant balm to my soul.
Thank you for sharing that. There's so much hope in that. Because like you said, it could be very easy to get overwhelmed and think, oh no, what do I do now? And so just that reminder that, yeah, God doesn't leave us. He doesn't forsake us, that he walks with us no matter what's going on in life, that Jesus will walk with us and carry the burden together with us. I know one thing that as parents that we've considered, we have 2 boys, I know you have 2 girls, and you and I grew up in the same era of purity culture and true love waits and all of that stuff. And thankfully, I don't think I internalized that stuff too much. I feel like I came through relatively unscathed. But I know there are so many, both men and women, that were very strongly impacted by that message to the point where, like you said, they get married and sex is not what they was promised to them. It's very, very different. And so I guess I have 2 questions. One, how do we as people that journeyed through that time and those teachings find healing for ourselves so that we can teach our kids in a healthier and more God-centered way about sex and intimacy within marriage?
Yeah. So I think where it helps me to start is the idea of, where did purity culture come from? So is purity culture new? Yeah and no, right? For sure. It's new in that it was a response to the rising teen pregnancy rates and increased teen drug use in the 90s, which is a fair thing for people to be concerned about, right? There was a good heart behind it. They wanted to prevent bad outcomes for kids. That's fair. And of course, people have wanted to treat sex as something sacred for a very long time. That's not new in purity culture. What was new, and our research actually bears this out, is like the idea of not kissing until the altar. That was very new. And a lot of the kind of way that things were packaged was definitely new. And then the other thing that was an innovation with purity culture, I think was one of the worst things, is that it became, and this is an idea that, as far as I know, was popularized by Caitlin Beatty. It is not my idea, and she will tell you that she didn't come up with it, but I don't know who to credit. So we're crediting Caitlin Beatty. And that is the idea that purity culture is a prosperity gospel, ultimately. Ooh. So it says, if you follow the rules, everything will be great. And I remember being a kid at an Acquire the Fire event, and there was a couple who sat in front of a stage of thousands of young people, and they told this story about how they had sex before marriage, and it had been so fun. And then they got married, and now they have all of these sexual problems, and it all happened because they had premarital sex.
Wow.
And that really stuck with me, because of course it did. And it was, I look back and I'm like, that doesn't follow. Like, that's like something else was going on, my friends. And just sort of going, okay, like, again, let's get curious about this. Let's get curious about what did we internalize. So I remember that memory is so vivid. It's in She Deserves Better because I remember it like it was yesterday. And I don't know why it got seared into my brain. But it was like this terrible boogeyman that if you did it, it was going to end badly. And if you waited, then everything was going to be great. Well, a lot of the times it isn't. And also flipping the switch from no, if nothing's allowed to suddenly everything's allowed is very difficult for a lot of people. And I think that just honesty is such a big thing. And purity culture ultimately wasn't honest.
Okay.
There was a lot of trying to sell people a bill of goods. And again, for understandable and oftentimes really admirable reasons. But again, getting curious means, okay, what did I believe? Why did I believe it? Why were these people telling the story that they were? What were the incentives that were good? What were the incentives that were not so good about what they were teaching? And then for our kids, I think it's just being honest with them about here's the pros, here's the cons, here's the story, here's why you're made with dignity, and really starting with the biggest thing I come back to is consent. Like, I know that seems really basic, but when, again, the big undercurrent of purity culture is, and a lot of purity culture discussions focus on the first part and not on the second. So a lot of the times we say, oh, well, purity culture was a problem because it said that everything, you would be ruined if you didn't have sex before marriage. That was a very important part of purity culture, and it really mattered. The second side, though, mattered just as much, and it was, why are you waiting? Especially, why are you waiting, boys? You're waiting because when you get married, A, you're going to have the best sex life possible, and also she will be always available to you.
Ooh.
You end up, again, not in a place where you can communicate, and also in a place where the woman is coerced into giving consent all the time. And also where there are lots of relationships. We've done the numbers. There's a large number of couples where she has a higher sex drive than he does.
Right.
And where do those couples fit in that paradigm? He feels inferior. She feels like a monster. Like, it's just, you end up with all of these downstream negative effects. And I think if we just got back to, okay, whoa, okay, what does libido look like? What is consent? How do we build, what are the big rocks that we're going to put into our marriage and our sex life? And then from there, who are we as individuals? What do we like? How do we want our marriage to be? How do we want our sex life to be? What are our goals, right? Asking those kinds of questions. And again, just getting curious, not just about how things should be or how things will be if you follow the exact right rules and you do it all perfectly. And maybe you should kiss and maybe you shouldn't kiss. And I just remember the agony over like what was okay to do and what wasn't okay to do. And could you hold hands? And would it be okay to kiss? And how much kissing? And could you use your tongue? And like so many questions. And it's like, okay, what if we slowed down, took a deep breath, and moved forward again, just with that confidence that the Lord is with us. It's going to be okay. And just getting curious about the big questions instead of going on shoulds.
Joanna, we've talked before, and God's given you a beautiful vision for what men and women are. Can you share that with?
Sure. So essentially, it made me laugh that we met at a kindergarten classroom, because when we were writing Great Sex Rescue, I said, guys, here's the thing. Everything we need to know, we all learned it in kindergarten. Like, you're nice to you should be kind to people. If you hurt somebody, you should say sorry. If somebody hurts you, then if they keep doing it, you don't have to be friends with them anymore. Like, it's just the basics. We kind of understand. Like, how are we coaching our kindergartners? Let's use those same paradigms with ourselves, because maybe that advice was good. What we know is that everybody's a person. Everybody is a person, and everybody should be treated with dignity and with respect. And so when we wrote Great Sex Rescue, we ended it with the idea that women are people too, and that women matter, that we talk a lot in our research about the idea of whose needs get to matter the most and how do we sort all that out. It's like, again, just everybody's needs should matter. Sometimes, having had babies, right? When you're postpartum, like, I'm sorry, mom and babe's needs come first in the household when you have a newborn. That's how it should be. Right? Because it's like, it's just a lot physically, emotionally, spiritually, everything so much that, of course, we're going to make sure that that's the person who's prioritized. When my daughter has had pneumonia, her needs come first. It's like, that's just how it goes. And again, just being in touch with what is the truth about what's happening right now. How are we going to figure out how to prioritize all of the things we want to do? Because there's lots of things that need to be prioritized. And just kind of coming back to that home base. But essentially just seeing that women are fully people. Women are people who have gifts. Those gifts matter. Women have voices. We matter. And really raising up that the dignity of women is really important to me. And then similarly, for men are people too. Mm-hmm. I think that the sad thing that has happened in so many of the books and the writing, that women are told essentially, appease the men in your life, make yourself small so that you can make him big. And then the men are told, you're a monster. You're in charge and you have to make all the decisions. You have all of this pressure, but also you are driven by your sex drive. Noticing that a woman is attractive is lust when that isn't the case. You're told that all of these things that are abnormal are equated with super normal male sexual responses. Just normal sexual responses broadly are equated with things like voyeurism, sexual acting out, like sometimes criminal sex acts in books like Every Man's Battle. A criminal sex act will be listed alongside noticing that a woman is attractive. Like that, those aren't the same thing. We shouldn't be combining them. And if someone is dealing with sex addiction, there's help for that, but that's actually abnormal. So let's accept that that's abnormal and move forward. But seeing that men are people too, that men also have emotional needs. Men also need to embrace, vulnerability and interdependence and that beautiful dance of being in relationship, that everybody is a person. And if we kind of keep coming back to that home base of the fact that we are people who are made in the image of God, to use the C.S. Lewis line, we are sons of Adam and daughters of Eve. Mm-hmm. Again, just the dignity of that, the goodness of that, and coming back to that as opposed to the shoulds. And I think that the in as much as the idea of biblical manhood and biblical womanhood are a bill of goods, it's because we're getting away from the image of God in every person, and we're coming back to putting people into these boxes. It's like, I'm sorry, have you met Deborah? Or JL? Like, she put a tent peg through a guy's head. Like, and the Bible's very clear she did a good thing. And so it right, as opposed to just following the way of Jesus in our own context and to the best of our ability in our own individual way, using the gifts that God has given us.
I can, even just in hearing you talk about this, I can sense and feel how much you care for people, and that you have the desire, and even through the work that you've done together with Sheila and Rebecca, you want people to be whole in Christ, to know that they were made in God's image, and that just because of that fact that they all have value. Mm-hmm. And I know for us too, part of the reason why we are doing the Living Marriages podcast is that we long for, and we know God has such a desire for healthy marriages. Mm-hmm. And such a big part of that is sexual intimacy. Mm-hmm. And so thank you so much for the work that you've done and that you continue to do. Mm-hmm. We haven't finished all of the books yet, but we're working through them. And for those of the listeners out there, can you just give them an idea of where they can find more information if they want more information? Yeah,
so I'll sort of pitch like, which book might be the book for you? Mm-hmm. So if you're going, so I talked about this in She Deserves Better. I realized when I was in college and almost engaged that I did not understand how sex worked. Mm. I thought that things went into different places than they actually went. And I had gotten a full ride scholarship to university. So there is no shame. Because I I just hadn't gotten the sex ed, right? Like I misunderstood an SNL skit with Dana Carvey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
With Church Lady, that character.
Oh, yeah.
And but I got myself sorted out. So if you're in the like, oh no, actually I'm needing sex ed. I need to know how things work, kind of give me the basics. The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex and the Good Guy's Guide to Great Sex. The Good Girl's Guide is written just by Sheila Wray Gregoire. I did the stats for both books though. So haha, you're getting me regardless. And then the Good Guy's Guide was written by Sheila and her husband Keith, who is a pediatrician. And those are just great overviews of how does sex work? What is the sexual response cycle? How can we make sure it feels good? All of that really good stuff is in there. Sort of your basic information. It's a great place to start. If you are going, okay, I was affected by purity culture, I would start with the Great Sex Rescue, which really goes into here's how purity culture affected women. In particular, some discussion of men, but mostly it's about women's experiences. And then we took it a little bit further and we said, okay, let's look specifically at what's next. So again, I have 2 daughters. So I was thinking like, okay, so we know stuff didn't go great. How do we make sure it's better for our girls? And that's why we wrote She Deserves Better, which that one also does a bit more deconstructing specifically things like dating rules, modesty rules, things that we experienced as teenagers. So if that's where you're feeling like that's where your own struggles are, that would be where I would go. And then if you're looking for a marriage book, Sheila and Keith, and again, I did the stats for this one, just came out with a marriage book last year called The Marriage You Want, and it's great. They talked about sex. There are chapters about how to figure out housework, but there's also a lot of stuff that isn't typically discussed in Christian marriage books. So we did talk significantly about how do we split up housework? How do we split up mental load? How do you do emotional labor for each other? So I was running all sorts of stats about kin keeping work and how you're splitting up basic running of a household tasks, because that's part of marriage. It is the friendship side. It is the emotional intimacy side. It is the sexual intimacy side, but it's also just the nuts and bolts of we live in the same house and we're having to sort out all of the stuff that comes with managing a house and work and kids and life, and really looking at things a little bit more holistically. And I'm a big fan of The Marriage You Want as well. So that's a really great place to go if you're looking for more marital stuff and a more broad, big picture look at where can we go? What's the hopeful spot in the future? Marriage You Want is where you want to go.
Wonderful. And Sheila's podcast, which you're involved with as well, her website, do you want to let people know where they can find that? So the Bare Marriage podcast comes out every week on Thursdays. And that is Sheila Wray Gregoire hosts that along with her daughter, Rebecca Lindenbach. We also have a Patreon with a very active Facebook group. And we do a Patreon bonus podcast, which is where I tend to hang out on the internet. So if you want to hear my takes on why we should all learn how to make decisions from Jane Austen's Persuasion, that's where to find me. And then there's also, of course, the Bare Marriage website, and Sheila Wray Gregoire on all of the social media is another great place to go. Well, Joanna Sawatsky, we are so grateful for your friendship and for you taking the time to share your heart and your story with us and with our listeners. And we are excited to have you back on again sometime. And we're actually scheduled to have Sheila on the podcast as well. So we're
awesome.
Very excited for that. And so thank you so much again.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Thank you for the privilege of journeying with you today as we seek God's best for our marriages.
Before you go, if you've been blessed, challenged, or inspired by what you've heard today, please bless us by hitting the follow button, leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and sharing this podcast with family and friends.
You can also support this nonprofit podcast by making a charitable donation at our website, livingmarriages.com.
Until next time, praying the life, intimacy, and connection of God's love over you and your marriage.